Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Tenyi deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely fun deck to play to summon out all sorts of really cool boss monsters using your Tenyi spirit cards. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name, description of every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Ashuna. Ashuna is an amazing 3-of in the deck, and all of your Tenyi spirit monsters in the main deck actually share a common effect. And if you control no effect monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is a really cool ability just to help you swarm the board with all sorts of different Tenyi spirits, so you can link climb into some really powerful cards. This card also has an ability that if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard to special summon a Tenyi monster from your deck, except another copy of this card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except worm monsters, which is not that big of a deal, because that's pretty much all we're summoning anyways. We then play 3 copies of Vashuda. Vashuda is a definite 3-of in the deck, and this card is an amazing 3-of because it has the ability to control a face-up non-effect monster. You can banish this card from your hand or graveyard and then target one card your opponent controls and return it back to the hand, which is a great ability just to be able to bounce a card off your opponent's side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Shathana. Shathana is really cool as a 3-of in the deck that has the ability if a face-up non-effect monster that you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or grave and then target one of those destroyed monsters and special summon it. Then destroy one monster your opponent controls, which is a great ability just to give you your monster back while also dealing with a monster on your opponent's side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Adahara. This card is a crazy 3-of in the deck with a really cool ability to recover back your banished Tenyi monsters, because if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your hand or grave and then target your banished worm monster, accept this card, and add it back to your hand, which is a great ability to be able to use. Plus, this card is actually a tuner, making it super easy to synchro summon into some really cool cards. We then play a single copy of Nahata. Nahata is really good just as a 1-of in the deck. I don't feel like you need any more than a single copy of this card, but it's a really cool 1-of in this deck, because if you control no effect monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and when an attack is declared involving your face-up non-effect monster and an opponent's face-up monster, you can banish this card from your hand or grave, and that opponent's monster loses 1,500 attack points until the end of this turn, making it very easy to go over one of your opponent's monsters. We then play a single copy of Mapura. Mapura is just a good 1-of, just like your copy of Nahata, but this card is great in the deck because when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a face-up non-effect monster that you control, quick effect, you can banish this card from your hand or grave and negate the activation, and then if you do, destroy that card, which is a pretty good effect for this card to have. We then play a single copy of Mermere. Mermere is great because this card is very easy to summon to your side of the field. It can actually thrice per turn special summon out a copy of a token to your side of the field, which is great to help you link climb, and this card is just really good in the deck as a 1-of. We then play 3 copies of the Tactical Trapper. This card is a really neat 3-of in the deck, and this card is actually a really cool combo piece at helping you synchro summon in this deck, because if this card is normal or special summon, you can banish a trap card from your deck and then increase this card's level by 1, which is a great effect to be able to use with your copy of Sword Soul Blackout. Because your copy of Sword Soul Blackout has the ability, if this card is banished, you can actually special summon a Sword Soul token. It's a Worm Tuner, Water, level 4, 0 attack and 0 defense, which gives you a tuner token on your side of the field, so you can start synchro summoning into some really powerful cards. This card is our best normal summon in the deck and a really cool card to be able to play in this build as a tech card, so that we can actually go in for some really cool synchro summons. Usually you're going to go into your copy of Ravenous Croco Dragon, which is just such a cool card to be able to summon to your side of the field. I really love summoning out that card to your side of the field because it's just such a powerful card, because this will will come level 5, and the tuner token is level 4, so you can make this card, which is just really cool to be able to do. It's super fun to be able to play in this particular build. Plus, the deck doesn't really have a normal summon, and this is a great one to be able to play in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is a great hand trap at just stopping your opponent from touching the deck. We then play 3 copies of Droll Lockbird. Droll Lockbird is great in this particular build at stopping your opponent from searching for the rest of the turn, and it's a fantastic hand trap right now in this format. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start off with 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires is really good as a 2-of in this build because you really don't play anything that you absolutely need at 1 in this deck. You're playing a lot of 3-ofs in this build, so this card is really good at just helping you get to the exact card that you need and just digging into the deck so you can get some more combo pieces. We then play 3 copies of Vessel of the Dragon Cycle. This card is basically like Foolish Burial, but really crazy because you can send a worm monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then, if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can add to from your deck to your hand 1 Tenyi monster with a different name from the monster sent to the grave, which is a really cool ability for this card to have. We then play 3 copies of Heavenly Dragon Circle. Heavenly Dragon Circle is great in this particular build because it lets you target a worm monster, and it has the ability that you tribute a worm monster and then add a worm monster from your deck to your hand, or if you tributed a non-effect monster to activate this effect, you can actually special summon it instead, but negate its effects, which is a really cool ability just to get the exact card you want on your side of the field. And during your main phase, if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can manage this card from your graveyard to add a Tenyi monster from your deck to your hand, but you only use 1 effect of this card per turn and only 1 stat turn, but it's a great 3-of in the deck because it's a quick play spell that you can set to your side of the field and then flip up at any time, which is a great effect for this card to have. Plus, it searches Tenyis. So, that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Impermanence is a definite 3-of in the deck just to stop your opponent's monster effects and also lock down entire columns of spells and traps. Plus, this is just a fantastic hand trap. We then play 3 copies of Sword Soul Blackout. Sword Soul Blackout is like Icarus Attack, but this card works really good with your copy of the Trapper because it does give you that copy of a token on your side of the field if it's banished, which is super cool. I love that about this card, but it's a really good 3-of in this build because it lets you target a worm monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy them, which is a really cool effect for this card to have. This card is a definite 3-of in the build, and I absolutely love this card. We then play 3 copies of Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi. This card is a great counter trap in this build because when a spell trap or monster effect is activated, while you control a face-up non-effect monster, negate the activation, and if this set card that you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 non-effect monster from your extra deck, which is a really cool effect to be able to use because we can actually summon out Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon with this card. I love that about this card because it's a non-effect monster that you can actually summon out if your opponent does decide to destroy this card. So we actually do play Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in the extra deck to summon off the copy of the Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi, which is absolutely crazy. I love that about this card, and it's really cool because this card always gives you a plus. It either is a negate or lets you summon out a really cool boss monster that's absolutely massive. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with a single copy of Draco Masters of the Tenyi. This card is really good as a 1-of in the deck because it cannot be destroyed by battle with an effect monster, so it's really hard for your opponent to deal with this card. And if you control no other effect monster, you can actually destroy effect monsters that your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters that you control or in your graveyard, which is a really cool ability for this card to have to be able to pop multiple cards on the field, and it's really difficult for your opponent to deal with. We then play a single copy of the Link 4 Tenyi Spirit. This card is just a great one-of boss monster in the deck. It's very easy to make in this build, and it just ends games. We then play 2 copies of Berserker of the Tenyi. Berserker of the Tenyi is great in this build because it is a non-effect monster, or just a normal monster, that actually has 3,000 attack points. It's very easy to make in this build, and it's a great boss monster in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Shaman of the Tenyi. Shaman of the Tenyi is really cool in this build because you can actually discard a card and then target a worm monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Also, for the rest of the turn, you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summoned from the X deck except Tenyi monsters, which is a pretty cool ability just to instantly get you a copy of a worm monster back onto your side of the field. And when an attack is declared involving your face-up non-effect monster, you can actually target a card your opponent controls and destroy it, which is a really neat effect to be able to use with your copies of Monk of the Tenyi. We then play 3 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. This is how we always have a non-effect monster on our side of the field, is because this is a link 1 that you can link away any of your Tenyi spirits away for, giving you a guaranteed normal monster on your side of the field, which is just so cool to be able to instantly get a normal monster on the field, but just special summoning out a Tenyi monster side of the field and then linking it away for this card. We then play a single copy of the Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign. This card works really well in the deck because it is a worm monster, plus it's very easy to put on your side of the field. And for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and then all monsters your opponent control lose 100 attack and defense. So when you activate Pot of Desires, all of your opponent's monsters are going to go down by 1,000, and all of ours are going to go up by 1,000, or this one will, which is really, really cool. Plus, it works really well with Sword Soul Blackout because it has a great ability that if this card would be destroyed by a card effect, you can actually banish 1 card from your graveyard instead, and if a card is banished, you can actually use the ability to banish 1 card from both your opponent's field and graveyard, which is a great ability. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur. Baron de Fleur is just great because it's a walking negate in this build. Play a single copy of Ravenous Croco Dragon. This card is great to be able to make with a copy of the Trapper, plus your copy of your Sword Soul Blackout token. And this card is great in this deck because if this card is Synchro Summon, you can draw cards equal to the number of non-tuner monsters used for this card Synchro Summon, and quick effect, you can discard 2 cards and then target 1 card on the field and destroy it, which your Tenyis want to be in the graveyard, so it's very good in this particular build. Plus, this card gains 500 attack and defense for each card in your hand, so it can get really big. Plus, this card plus Adahara equals either of these cards. We then play a single copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. This card is great in the deck because it's really big in this build. It can go through multiple monsters of battle phase, and when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can actually quick effect banish it, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. This is what we summon off of Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi if our opponent does pop it, so this card is great in the build as a one-of. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Tenyi before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's actually a very budget deck to be able to pick up, which is super nice about this deck. And it's just a really fun deck to be able to play, just to swarm the field with all sorts of different Tenyi cards and be able to go in for game. So, that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.